Happy New Year, Bobcats. Good to be back. I hope that you had a great winter break. And I know that many of us are happy that 2020 is behind us. And we're hoping and praying that 2021 will be a much better year. I know many of us can approach this new year with a little bit of an apprehensive attitude. And I think rightfully so. I think last year we're coming off of a really hard year, really difficult times when we've experienced loneliness and isolation and depression and hard circumstances. And even when we look at the news recently, we can be so disheartened by what we're seeing going on in our world today. Now, how do we begin to hope in the midst of troubling and uncertain times? Thankfully, we don't serve a God who's cold and indifferent to our circumstances, but one who in every sense of the word wants to engage with us and enter into our brokenness with us. He wants to restore light and hope. Now, this semester, we wanted to focus our bi-weekly community groups on just that. How does Jesus enter into our darkness? How does he enter into the brokenness of our lives, of our world? So we wanted to start a video series covering the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. Now, whether you are totally unfamiliar with Jesus or have been following Jesus for most of your life, I'm hoping and praying that this series will just be so life-giving for us as we study and learn about this God who enters into our darkness. Now, my middle daughter, KK, who just turned 7, she loves art. And so naturally, of course, this last Christmas, we loaded her up with a ton of art supplies. And one of the first paintings she painted was right here. In this painting, I asked KK, what does this painting mean? I had no idea. I just saw it laying on the table. And she said, oh yeah, that's God's light shining in the darkness. God's light shining in the darkness. And at first I was thinking, man, there is such a lot of darkness in that picture. But the light stands out in sharp contrast to the darkness all around, like a star in the night sky. Now, in times like these, the darkness can seem so overwhelming. It can seem like it's bearing down on us, but like a star, the light of God can shine brightly, even in the darkest of nights. Now, in our passage for today, we are going to look at the birth of Jesus. Now, I want you to, as you look at this in Matthew chapters 1 and 2, pay special attention to the dark and hard circumstances that are going on in the world as Jesus enters into the scene. And notice how Jesus begins to bring hope and light in the darkness. Community group leaders, take it away in Matthew chapter 1. In our passage for today, the wise men were guided by a star to get to Jesus. But the star is not the great light. Jesus is the great light in the darkness. Now later on in Matthew chapter 4, verse 16, it says, the people who sat in darkness have seen a great light. For those who lived in the land where death cast its shadow, a light has shined. Isn't that awesome? Our God looks upon those who are sitting in darkness and wants to bring light, bring hope out of the darkness. Now, although many of us have walked through hard and difficult times, it is good to know that our God is with us, that he wants to bring hope, that he is the light of the world. The light has shined in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. It's so good to know that our God is the one who wants to restore hope. And I hope that we, this year, this semester, even in the midst of dark times, we can be experiencing the hope and the light of Christ. Hopefully in community, as we gather together, keep spurring one another on. I pray that in this season, the Lord fills us with a hope not based on our earthly circumstances, but based on who God is, a hope in him that will never fade away, because he is a sure and steadfast anchor for our souls. Now, we've included a reading plan for the book of Matthew that we'll be following along the rest of the semester. That will be included in a link down below this video, as well as a link to the discussion questions. You'll also find a link to a really sweet video that the guys over at the Bible Project put together doing an overview of the book of Matthew. I really encourage you to look at it as we study this semester. Good to see you again, Bobcats. Happy New Year. So, as you may know, we haven't been able to gather as a large group for our large weekly meetings with crew this year. And that's why we created these bi-weekly community group videos, so to kind of keep some of our unified crew vision together, to kind of feel like still like we're one big movement together. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to meet, but this year we're hoping that we can still get together and meet as a whole movement. So it might look different, but one idea what we're going to try, I want you to save the date for Friday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. Friday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. We're hoping to do a drive-in crew meeting at the west parking lot at E-Free Church. It should be a lot of fun. We're going to have worship set up. We're going to hear from a speaker, some student testimony. It should be a pretty fun time. So Friday, January 22nd at 5 p.m. for a drive-in crew meeting that will be COVID appropriate. And then a couple weeks after that, on Friday, February 5th and Saturday, February 6th, we have this huge virtual crew winter conference. We'll have a link with details about that below. It should be an incredible time gathering with students from all over the country. I just looked today and there's about 2,500 students from around the U.S. that are already signed up to do this thing. It should be a blast. We're going to have watch parties for Crew Winter Conference going on throughout different homes, staff and community group homes and stuff like that. So should be a sweet time. I'm hoping that even though we can't quite gather in the way we've done in the past because of COVID, I'm hoping that even in these smaller pockets we can still enjoy sweet fellowship with one another.